think we can start.
All right. Now, for any of you that have either been in attendance at any of our previous live podcasts or have listened to them, you know we like to actually play the intro theme live and let you folks kind of sing along to it to give it the real feel. So let me get that set up here and we'll actually get started. All right, where do I have it?
You mean it's not your ringtone by now?
Try not to blow anybody's ears out. All right, we ready to rock and roll? All right.
Following is a presentation of Tuning into Sci-Fi TV, the viewer's guide to genre television.
Take you back.
Hello, everyone. And welcome to Tales of the Black Badge, a Winona Earp fan podcast. My name is Kevin Batchelder.
And I'm Bonnie Farrar, and we're live from New Orleans at Earp Expo.
2019.
Yeah. I was like, should I put the year on there?
Let's go for it. So, the fun thing and the challenging thing and the exciting thing and the terrifying thing about doing these live podcasts is each time we do one, we try to, when we do them at the cons, if it fits in the con schedule, we say try to find a Sunday time slot. Only because we enjoy getting a chance to kind of reflect on what's happened in the first couple of days of the con. And we make this very much an interactive session. So even though the cast panels don't have audience questions, directly from the audience, we will. So we do have a very helpful volunteer with the mic. So if at any point you folks have a question or a topic you want to bring up for discussion, don't hesitate. Let us know. We make these very dynamic. The list of notes of what we're going to talk about could fit on what? Head of a pin?
I don't even think we had a list. No, we don't wait for, there's not going to be like, okay, and now it's the questions format, so if we're talking about something and all of a sudden you want to hear us talk more about it or less about it, motion for the mic and we'll get you in there.
Absolutely. I'm curious, by a show of hands, how many of you, this is your first EarpCon that you've attended?
Ooh.
So almost all of the audience. How's that? That's wonderful. That's wonderful. The energy, and you folks have heard us talk about it on the podcast, if you've been listening, these things are special. You don't get to feel this kind of energy and this kind of excitement at almost anything else. So I'm glad you folks got a chance to experience it. And do me a favor, since I do get some nice, well-meaning ribbing sometimes when I keep saying these things are life-changing, and I can sense the eye rolls on Twitter. So feel free to back me up anytime. And let folks know that, what we're talking about here and a chance to spend time with fellow Earpers really is something that's why we love doing it over and over.
Is there anyone here who has not listened to an episode of our podcast yet? Are you guys, anybody new? You haven't? I'm sorry, man. We'll talk later. Anyone new to, awesome. Okay, well, welcome. I'm very excited. Hopefully we can convince you to download a couple. Great, the interviews with the cast, I think, are fan favorites. They're some of our favorites, for sure. Kevin keeps telling me this isn't typical, that fan-run podcasts don't get to interview the cast over 20-something times. How many?
30 now.
30-something. So, I'm like, really? Okay. This is my first podcast I've ever done, so... So welcome. I'm glad you get a chance to listen to us do it live.
Absolutely. And I know, Bonnie, you put together some notes for some folks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So before we get started, I just want to remind everybody about the Artist Alley Vendor Hall. If you haven't been up there, it's on the second floor. And I just wanted to quickly run through the Earper artists that are up there. So, you've got several hours left after this podcast to go support your local Earper artists. And then, gets back into our community, and I think Earpers helping Earpers and supporting Earpers is kind of what we all do best. So Laura Innes is up there. She still has some limited edition prints left. So if you were wanting to get your hands on that beautiful Fight for Winona billboard print, she has a couple left. She also wanted me to let everybody know that she doesn't know when she'll be able to go to a convention again. So if any of the other prints caught your eye and you were kind of thinking you'd wait till the next one, you might want to go grab one. Beyond Klexa is there as well. They have Earp shirts. They even have a Lost Girl shirt and some Biffle hats and fanny packs. Gal Pal Stitches is there right next to Laura Innes's booth. Only Words Now Designs has buttons and prints. Undercover Geek has a special free Fight for Winona lanyard today with purchase. Kindness Untamed is there selling prints. All money's going to charity for Womankind, which helps survivors of gender-based violence in New York City. And Fangirl Shirts has stickers. They even have light-up shot glasses. Also, if you pre-ordered a shot glass, go pick it up, because otherwise I'm taking it home. Now, 5 shirts left, so if that Flirper shirt caught your eye and you want it, now's your chance. Buttons and koozies, so go support your local Earper artists. And if you're listening to this after the convention, you can find all those Earper artists on Twitter.
Yes. That's been one of the big things that has just been wonderful to see is all of the Earper initiatives, from folks doing, as we said, T-shirts and other items to podcasts, fan art. It's just amazing how much this community has stepped up and created content for all of us to be able to enjoy when we're not, actually watching the show. So being able to see some of that up close has been just really an amazing experience for Bonnie and I.
Absolutely.
So before we start going on a few topics, are there any things you specifically want to hear us chat on or questions for us to kind of kick off?
Everything.
Because we're never quite sure one time, what folks want to hear us go on as we go on so many of the topics ourselves on the podcast. But
I have a question for you.
we didn't script this.
I know. This is what I do best. We all know, did everybody see the Earp Sisters panel yesterday? Yes. We all know how much the Earp Sisters mean to Kevin, but I'm interested because I know you love the forehead kiss. I think everybody may have heard you mention that once.
Twice, maybe.
Maybe twice. It's an obscure podcast a long time ago. But when was the first moment for you that you fell in love with the Earp Sisters?
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, thanks. Start with the easy ones, huh?
That's what I do.
Well, I mean, like all of us, certainly the first couple of episodes, seeing the dynamic develop was fun, and I wouldn't say it was a love situation then, because this was a case for me where it really kind of grew along. I would say probably that point, if you're going to put me on the spot like this, it's going to be Ep 4, The Blade, when they're together out at the, shitty mud puddle or whatever it was. Big, deep lake. The Revenants got Winona and putting her on the spot, trying to see what she could apologize for. And the emotion that comes out of Waverly there, the honesty, too. She should have been the heir, and, you just show up and all of a sudden you get it. And Winona's willingness to just say, yes, you should be. And also those of you, too, that know that I'm such a big Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, when Waverly said, you're the chosen one, I mean, every single hair stood up on that one. And that's when I went, oh, this is really turning into something special. So that might have been the moment where I really, said this is much more than just a sister relationship that I enjoy. It's moved into that level.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever asked you that.
No, that was, yeah.
Is there anything you're dying to know about me?
I think, folks, I know you've touched on it a little bit sometimes. I'm not sure so much on the podcast, and you folks have, heard me say, Bonnie is a single mom with 5 kids. Okay? Yeah, round of applause for that, please. So to be able to do as much as she does, to take care of her family and her career and all that, and to do the podcasts and everything else, I'm blessed that I get to actually see it, so to speak, from behind the scenes. But maybe you could talk a little bit about how some of the challenges and ways that you multitask when we're actually recording, because no one gets to see or hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's challenging for sure. The thing about having 5 kids and having a job and a house to run, and then the fandom and the podcast, and being the kind of person that I am, I always feel like I'm letting someone down. Like there's always someone who I feel like needs me that I'm not. That I feel guilty, like, I haven't, So sometimes he'll even say, I'll say, I haven't been on Twitter in like 2 days, and he's like, it's okay, But when we're doing the podcast, I think I'm always trying to do everything, like be everything for everybody all the time. And I don't know if that's a mom thing, if it's a me thing, but we'll be in the middle of podcasts, and I'm putting my kids to bed, because we do podcasts often with different time zones. And so in order to make it work, I usually have to do it around the bedtime, which is better than any of the other times of the day, to be honest. But so I'm trying to get my kids to brush their teeth, and there's a wonderful, wonderful thing in podcasting called the mute button. Kevin taught me that real fast. But it's awesome, because I literally will have my cell phone and my mic attached to me, and my kids know, like they'll walk in my room, and I'll have it muted all the time unless I'm speaking, and they walk in my room and they're like, Mom, and then they'll stop, and I'll be like, and they're like, are you on the podcast? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, okay. And so they're getting really good at that. But if it's bedtime, or a couple times I've had to do it while I was like actually making dinner, and that's a bit challenging, because sometimes I'll be like, oh my God, that's so interesting. Yeah, it's totally like this. And Kevin, what do you think? Mute. And then I run down the hall, and I'm like, guys, bedtime. And they're like, okay. I'm like, I'm on a podcast. Let's go. And they jump in their beds, and I'm like hugging them and kissing them, and then I'm like, wait, and unmuted, and I'm like, uh-huh. and then I keep tucking him in, and I'm giving him kisses, and then of course, the little one, he's 6, so it's never quick. It's always like, one more kiss, one more hug, one more, I need a drink, and I'm like, oh, hurry up, So we're doing all that, and then sometimes, once in a while, not too often.
No, not too often.
Not too often. Once in a while, I will realize I'm not listening to what Kevin's saying, and then I'm like, oh shit. So then I have to unmute and go, Kevin, we're going to need to cut this part out, but what were you just saying? Because I don't know. And he's like, it's okay. So he'll kind of back it up a little bit. And yeah, it's challenging. There's one time we were on a call with someone from the cast, and the only time that we could do it, I was driving one of my children to was it school or lacrosse practice?
Yeah, I think it was an activity or something.
Oh yeah, and literally I knew that I was driving back from it, so it was going to be. And in the beginning of our phone calls, there's a little bit of a setup going on, where we're like, okay, thanks for joining us, and we talk before we start recording. And I had just dropped my kids off, and now the cast knows that I have kids now. The first year, I tried to be really professional. And so I went out of the house to do the interviews because, but after a while, it was if this is going to be something that I sustain as a single mom, I can't keep getting sitters for 3 hours, to do all these. So the cast has been great about it's okay, get them in bed, it's fine. So it's been challenging but fun.
Yeah, and it's something I have to give her a lot of credit on too, because as you folks have heard on the podcast, sometimes the the really fascinating ideas or perspectives on things that have happened, Bonnie just brings them out naturally in the course of the conversation. You know, and I think it was in the Blade episode early in season 1 when we had Winona do that line, you know, "Oh my God, I feel so smart right now." I can actually see that on her face when she thinks of something, just in audio form, because she gets so animated and brings up something, and you know, you just, in the moment, you don't think of these things ahead of time. I'm someone who has, I don't script it, but I've got like 40 lines of notes about the episodes. That's what helps me prep. And I'll look at the note thing sometimes and go, "Bonnie, you want to add anything?" "Oh, no, I'm good. I'm good."
I just
And
read his notes.
and it just comes out. So, I mean, the differences sometimes in the personality and approach, it just happens in the moment. And I know there's some folks who've asked about starting their own fan podcast for whatever it might be. It doesn't matter what the topic is. And they start to think that they need to be all of this advanced preparation and all of this money has to go into it and everything else. And Bonnie is the great example, as she said. Did you even know what a podcast was when we started?
No.
So, you know, you can do some amazing things if you're just willing to go outside of your comfort zone. And that's what I absolutely love about seeing a lot of the initiatives and the fandom, and certainly with Bonnie, is just that willingness to, "I don't know, but I'll figure it out. You know, I'll give it a shot."
Yeah. Just say yes to a lot more in life. I think the last 3 years, 4 years, I guess, because it started with Lost Girl. I just started saying yes, you know, to things that I wanted to do, and not listen to that voice inside of myself that said, "No, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you're not going to be good enough. Maybe you're," you know, and now we have a name for that. It's Jolene, right? You know, that little voice that just tells you that, like, you can't do that. There's better people for that. There's someone else who's more qualified, who can do a better job, who knows what they're doing. I mean, in all honesty, I've said this a couple of times on our podcast, but I'm glad I didn't have a crystal ball, because if you had showed me what was coming, it would have been harder to say yes, because I wouldn't have believed in myself enough. I wasn't there. Like, the belief and the confidence in myself had to grow with the podcast and with the fandom and with, you know, all the interactions that we've had. Because, yeah, I didn't know the first thing about running a Twitter account. I had literally just started tweeting like a year before. I was still figuring Twitter out, and I was like, I know it'll be great. But, you know, it's just say yes, do fun things, you know, learn something new, step outside your comfort zone. And I used to script more of the podcast, the first couple of episodes, because I didn't know what I was doing. But also, if you listen to those first 6 or 7 episodes, I think, you can hear I'm different in the first couple episodes, because I was trying to be somebody else. I was trying to be very
You know, who you thought you should be, rather than just being
like,
yourself.
What's the word I'm looking for? It's filtered. Thank you. I was very filtered, you know. I was scared of all those great ideas that were flashing through my head. You know, I was afraid it was going to sound stupid. I was afraid people were going to, like, tweet hate to me or be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you said that dumb thing." I remember in one of the first episodes, I made a reference, and I referenced the wrong show. I said Gilmore Girls. And I didn't mean to say Gilmore Girls. I don't know why I said Gilmore Girls. I was talking about the sister relationship. And I'm like, that's not what I'm talking. I meant to say something else, but the point is, I obsessed about that mistake for like weeks, you know? Now I don't even write my stuff down. Now I'm like, I'm fine. But that I think had to come, you know, with understanding that I had a voice and something to say. We all have a voice, and to trust that there are people out there who actually want to hear it, and finding those people, because not everybody wants to hear it. You know, there's tons of people out there who will tell you to be quiet or tone it down or dim it or whatever. But lucky enough to have found people in my life, and Kevin, who keeps reminding me to, like, just be yourself. So now you get all those, guess what? Like, I feel so smart right now. We're the Ghost River Triangle, all of us, you know, moments on the podcast. So, but I wasn't brave enough in the first season to do quite that. But I had to find what I wanted to talk about. I'm not the person who's going to talk about lighting, you know, like, or choreography, or the
Well,
know.
you may not have been comfortable enough to do some of that, but you certainly dived in on the interviews.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, but that was Kat Burrell's fault. She said, whatever you need for the podcast. And I said, well, since you said that, why don't you come on? And she said, okay. So,
Yeah, and I was the one trying to shield her, thinking that, again, fan podcasts don't get cast members when they've only put out, like, what, 2 episodes or 1 episode?
2 episodes.
We could have been serial killers. I mean, we had very little cred yet. So, I mean, I was trying to shield her when she said, well, what about if we wanted to do interviews? Like, well, I don't want to, because I didn't want you to get, like, all beat down by the reality of actors or press folks who are like, no, we don't do fan things, thank you, but no thank you. So when she started, oh, well, I got Kat, I got Dom, and then I'm like, okay, you're in charge of interviews. Go.
Well, it was funny because I ran Winona Fans, and I was the first fan account. The cast Kat Burrell had 3,000 followers back then. So she followed me, and a lot of the cast followed me because they were like, oh, that's cool, So I just sent her a DM and told her what a great job I thought she did on episode 2, and that the fans were going to love her, and, just to hold on to her hat because she was going to be really big. And she didn't believe me. She was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, no, trust me. Like, you're going to be a thing. And she was so sweet because, if you've met her, she's just delightful. I mean, she's awesome. And she was the first one who took a chance on us. And I said, we do a podcast. And she said, oh, my gosh, I would love to come on. And so I was like, okay, when can you come on? And she's like, anytime, you just tell me. And I was like, maybe this week. And she's like, absolutely. And so I DM'd him, and I'm like, hey, so I did this thing. I hope you're okay with it. But we got Kat Burrell coming on for an interview. Love you, bye. And he was like, wait, what? And then that just snowballed because, the cast, they're all in, and they've always been all in from the beginning. So that turned into, I think Tim tweeting to us, I want to come on the podcast. We were like, oh, okay. Shamir, like, when it was my turn, we're like, okay, hurry up, book them. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I also remember from season 1 talking about those interviews when we did start to get a few. You folks, the Earpers, showing how much the family community side of it were the ones who started sending messages to, like, Mel. When are you going to be on the podcast? And at first I'll admit I was cringing, like, ooh, we don't want to look too, should we be that forward? And I'm like, okay, fans are doing it. It's not me. I'm okay. I'm cool.
And I'm like, fly, monkey, fly.
And then she's the one who responds to a couple of those tweets on Twitter. Totally podcast. Tell me when. And I'm thinking to myself, this is surreal. We have people from the show we love, like, banging down the door to come talk to us. I mean, like, I'm getting bruised, pinching myself to make sure it's actually happening. Mm-hmm. But that's where the community started to make such a big difference. And all of you folks, too, the feedback we started to get, emails, voicemails, Twitter replies. We saw that this was turning into something that, neither of us had any experience with or any idea, but it was just the fun aspect of doing it, and then the idea, once we got, I think it was 5 episodes in, 4 or 5 in, and for any of you that have been with us for a while, the live tweets with the cast were so interactive and so much fun. When the episode ended, it was kind of like a bummer, like, that's it, we only had that hour. And about a year before, I had seen some friends of mine that did a podcast for a TV show called Continuum. Another Canadian show, yes. Outstanding show. Love that show. I really do. They had one of the actors on a video hangout with them. And I remember as a fan of their podcast and of the show thinking, this is pretty cool. The idea both of that the cast member was there, but that the fans were interacting and talking about the show. So it was just in the back of my head. And once Winona really started going, 4 episodes or so in, I'm like, that dawned on me one day, like, I got to look into what service they use to see if it's something that might go for the Winona stuff. So the whiskey and donuts kind of idea was born. And again, I was a little bit of the timid one because that first week we had scheduled to do it. Again, credit to Bonnie, because as soon as I presented this concept to her, she said, I don't know what it is, but okay, let's do it. And then that week, you schedule it on the service, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to really promote it because this might be a big fail. I have no idea what's going to happen. And Bonnie's like, oh, too late. I retweeted it, and I put it all out there. I'm like,
And I may have mentioned it to Emily Andrus. He's like, wait, what? That's just a test. And I'm like,
So yeah, to be able to keep it going with the Hangouts, that was just another level that I had no idea how amazing that would be. And then to have the cast members show up, spontaneously pop in, to have them do it as a giant group, like when they were all live tweeting together. Again, that was that stuff like this doesn't happen in other fandoms with other shows. It has started to do now a little bit, I've seen it. But folks, that's because of what we were doing, not so much Bonnie and I. This is the collective we. Because again, the comfort level to be open on the podcast is because of the community and the way you folks totally embrace us and what we're doing. Because yeah, I mean, I had no intentions of becoming the emotional guy on the podcast. You know, it's not something that I would want to put out there, but once I realized what the community was like and the safe space aspect of it, then, you know, it would come out if a couple of episodes or a scene really, you know, made that happen. And this is where lots of kudos go to Bonnie, because she can hear it in my voice when it starts to crack or I start to get that little pause, especially if we're talking about an Earp sister scene, and she can just swoop in and pick right up and give me the minute or two to collect myself. And you are amazing at that.
well, thank you. It's a team effort. But yeah, I think other people have asked me a lot, like from other fandoms and other networks and different things, like how do you know, when we've done some interviews and things, and how do you do this again? You know, like basically give us the blueprint to like make this for us. And I don't there isn't one, because it's everyone, and it's every, you know, it's sort of like you ever see those big murals that are made up of little tiny mosaic tiles? But together, an individual mosaic tile is nothing, and you probably would sweep it and throw it in the trash, but put together by somebody amazing, Emily Andrus, you know, it becomes this amazing, beautiful picture, you know? And some of those mosaic tiles are broken or chipped, or they might be fragments from other things that are no longer around, but together they make this amazing picture. And that's how I see the Earpers. And not to say that any of us are broken, because I think there is an absolute perfection in admitting that we're all not perfect. And it's taken me a very long time to understand that. But Winona is embodiment of that, right? Of perfect imperfection. And I think that is because no one's perfect, right? And Waverly tried so hard to be perfect her whole life, and that made her very not perfect, because she was living a life that was not for her, a life that was for everyone else but her. Winona spent her whole life not believing she was perfect, being told she wasn't perfect, but in their imperfection, they are perfect, right? They're perfect together, and they're perfect for the job and for what they have to do. And that's kind of how we are together as Earpers. In this fandom, every little tile, every little piece makes this incredible picture. So there is no blueprint, you know. There is no like, well, all you have to do is open a fan account and then open a podcast, and you know, it isn't. Emily has said it. It's lightning in a bottle, but it's because of everybody. And I think you see that the clearest example of that would be in the fight for Winona with the billboards in New York City, because. You know, lots of Earpers were tweeting using the hashtag, and there was one Earper who wanted to do something that came up with the great idea, like, I'll just make a billboard. I'll do a billboard in Times Square. I didn't even know you could do that. Like, I was like, oh, that was a great idea, but I didn't even know people did that. And so they bought an ad, put it up on a billboard, but by itself, that ad would have been, it would have, you know, it's like if a tree falls in the woods and there's no one there to see it, does it really, you know, nothing would have happened. But because the New York City Earpers got wind of that and then took time out of their life to go down there and film it and bring it back to all the comic cants on Twitter, then all of a sudden it became a movement. But it could have ended there too. We could have been like, yay, good for that one, but no, because Earpers don't do that, right? We're like, oh, okay, we can make this bigger and better. So then all kinds of Earpers started buying ads, and then all of a sudden there were like 30 ads a night, and then all of a sudden we're converting big sign message, and all of a sudden we've got the cast going out to New York City and standing on the streets, and it became a movement, but that's because of everyone on Twitter and everybody who, in the fandom. So that's the clearest message I have. There's no script for what we're doing. We're just being ourselves, and being ourselves, this incredible community this is a really long talk, but anyway, this incredible community has become what it is.
Yeah, it's just, it keeps on, for me, and I think for us, it just awestruck sometimes, not because of the cast, but because of the Earpers and the Earper family and what we're able to do collectively. To have folks run with that, because it was hard once, we kind of got the fight started, so to speak. There was that initial rush of, okay, let's get this out there, and it got out there and got trending. And then the pressure kind of turned to, okay, as folks who are trying to organize some of these things, what do we do? How can we do something collectively that's going to work? So to have Earpers just take up the mantle and run with it, and then that gets us the ability to be interviewed for different articles in the press, which gets more folks aware of it, and so on and so on. And that's where it just builds from there. And that's because of the Earper community, the kindness and everything that everybody takes. It's a bit overwhelming emotionally sometimes. It really is, because we also get lots of messages from Earpers about things that are going on and what the show means to them. And it's a lot emotionally to get some of that one-on-one exchange. Beautiful, but a lot. We just want to keep it going, keep it happening, and doing anything we can so that it does.
Do you guys have questions?
Yeah, you guys have any questions or topics, or we'll just get really sappy and everything.
Check. Here we go. My question is, who's an interview that you haven't gotten yet that you really, really would love to get? It doesn't have to be from Winona. It could be from anywhere else too.
Not for Winona, I've always wanted to interview Michael Eklund, and that's he's such a busy guy. It's been a bit difficult. I think we've got to live. We pretty much keep interviewing everybody. I'm like, I would love to interview this person. Oh, guess what? We scheduled him next week. I think it would be fun to maybe interview Willa. Especially with her coming to Earpapalooza.
Megan, yeah.
Megan follows. That's a tricky one.
I think we can say pretty easily that if there's someone that you think we would like to interview, we have put in the efforts to get that ball rolling. Some is easier than others, but trust us, we're always still working those things. Bonnie gets me updates every now and then of, I sent this person and we're doing that, and also the timing of it with people's schedule, and also when the show is airing and not, we try to make it all flow, as you folks know, so that we've got content year-round, even when the show's not on, especially during the fight as well. So we've got some fan folks and other folks that are, we've already been talking about, and sometimes you folks come up with good ideas that we hadn't thought of. Rebecca, looking at you. So that's what's great, is the fact that everybody takes ownership of it and kind of gets involved with us for it.
I really wanted, in last season, I really wanted to get Anna Silk on the podcast. That was a bit of a selfish motivation. But also because I really, really, really wanted to hear Anna Silk say the word Kevin, for an entire hour. So did Kevin. But I really wanted to be like, so Kevin, let's ask Anna Silk about playing Kevin. But she was filming at the time in Atlanta at the time, and her schedule was such that she really couldn't get on the show. And because those characters that tend to just be on for one episode, it's a lot harder to get them. But that would have been fun. Like I said, I would have just sat
Doesn't
there
mean
and
we've given
laughed
up
the whole
on
time.
it.
No. Nope.
That's Lost Girl, as many of you know from listening to us, is one of the main reasons why Bonnie and I found each other, and also for many of us why we found Winona. So it would be special to be able to get her on, and I am certainly hoping that Emily can get Ksenia on as a guest star at some point on the show.
Yes.
So that would
be
give us an in
amazing.
to try to get her as well. I'd love to talk to her
Yeah.
on the podcast.
I know. I'm always like, okay, what people do I want to talk to? Let's see if we can get them on the show. Tatiana Maslany. Let's. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? Don't trip over each other, folks.
Single file lines. Single file.
Topics or anything you want to hear us?
I'll take one for the team. Is there any off-season stuff, since we're not currently getting a season 4?
Yeah.
Any off-season stuff that you're looking forward to do, or what fans could be doing? Does that make sense?
Well, for the podcast, we did some Fight for Winona podcast. I think when that all went down, we felt like we had to kind of focus on that. And then we did a podcast with the Billboard. It was called our Billboard podcast. And we talked to the people who were involved in that and Big Sign Message. And we got such great feedback on that. I think Kevin and I realized that people were just like dying for something fun, like we just want to have fun with Winona again. So we started coming up with some really interesting topics to try to, go down. I think we just did our top season 1 episode podcast. We also got Way Hot to come on, which was really great, and talk about their role in season 3. I don't know if you guys know Way Hot.
That episode got a few downloads.
Just a few.
Just a few.
We're still trying to promote it, but So yeah, so that was really fun. I think we're always thinking. Last season we got Andrea Higgins to come on. That was a really fun podcast. I think sometimes getting into the nuts and bolts of how the show's made is really interesting to me, because there's so many people behind the scenes, and that we realized that pretty quickly, that how many people do the thing that we love. Like Andrea is in charge of all the music, and that show wouldn't be quite the show without the music. The music is like a whole nother character. And so getting to listen to how she pulls music and picks some of the songs is pretty cool. I'm excited about some of the stuff we have. I can't tell you all the stuff we have. When we go to, do know this, that when we go to conventions, we're always working. So we're coming up with angles. We're talking to cast members about different pairings to come on the show. So.
Yeah, and without giving anything away, you talked to one of the cast members about a unique idea for.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're going to start to work that one. That'll be a lot of fun. Talking a little bit about that favorite season 1 episodes. This is a little kind of behind the scenes stuff when we started to say, okay, let's brainstorm on some hiatus topics, and we said, let's, the idea of favorite episodes came up, and how long did it take us to break that idea down without hurting ourselves?
Oh my God. That
It
was a
started
hard
out as what was it? We were each going to do a top.
Well, it started off let's do our top episode from each season and do one podcast. And then we're like, well, actually, depending on how, we might need more podcasts. So let's not let's try to break it out. So then we tried. And then we were like, okay, what about our top one episode from each podcast, from each season? And just do our favorite one from season 1. Kevin's like, oh, I don't know. Maybe we should each pick our top, what was it, 5? I think it was our
Well,
top 5.
I started at 5. I was ambitious.
Our top 5 from season 1. And then we'll ask the fans for their top 5. And I'm like, okay, so if you do 5 and I do 5 and fans do 5, that's 15 episodes, and there's only 13 episodes in a season.
That wasn't good in math on that
I
one.
was like, oh. I was like, then we're just talking about the whole season, which we can do. But so it took us a little while to break down the direction we wanted to go with that one. But I think I was happy with the end result.
Yeah, that was a case of where it took us a while to try to work down and see what would kind of fit. But we're also always open to, what you folks might have for an idea of a topic for discussion. So if it hits you later today or next week, please do reach out, because some of these topics we've done, especially during hiatus, have been fan ideas for things they thought would be interesting to do. So that's what makes the community side of this so much more fun, is having everybody be a part of it.
Yeah, our Peacemaker episode that we talked about Peacemaker, which is now none of it makes sense now. because the Peacemaker's a sword. Who saw that coming? Raise your hand. Yeah, the Peacemaker episode was actually a fan idea, and we got a lot of the feedback that we talked about. Some of the best ideas.
It is, yeah. Were not ours.
Not ours. They were fan ideas. The one that I loved the best was that, and I'm still like, I don't care, it's a sword, I'm still going with this, was that Peacemaker, like Wyatt Earp's soul was trapped inside a Peacemaker. That was my favorite, and I was like, oh, that's so smart. You know, like I still, because, and that's how it's a little bit sentient, you know? And the different colors are the emotions that Wyatt feels when he has to do something, whether, you know, and so I would imagine, you know, it glows blue, and I still say it's sadness from inside out. But I'm sticking with that until it's not true. You know, and that you know, he was sad when he had to put down Willa, because Willa was the heir, and that's why it glowed blue. But so the idea that maybe Wyatt is trapped inside of Peacemaker, which I guess still could be true if Peacemaker's just, I don't know.
Yep.
Everything went out the window last
still
season.
in play.
Yeah, I'm like, where's Black Badge? I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many things, and I'm like, I don't need, you know.
I keep, since the season 3 finale aired, I keep periodically pestering Bonnie, like, I really want to revisit and talk about all of those cliffhangery things we've got there. I mean, they could all be separate, and we probably now will do them as all separate podcasts since we got an extra long hiatus. But man, that was so much to digest. I remember when we recorded that podcast, like, how are we going to fit this in just an average sized podcast?
Well, and it's like, if we do a season 3 cliffhanger podcast, it's just going to be pretty much like a drinking game. Like, how wrong are they? You know what I mean? Because it's going to be like an entire podcast.
Well, we know we're going to be
saying,
wrong.
Jolene might be a good guy. I mean, it. Oh, yeah. I think it's because I like Zoe Palmer, and I wanted Zoe Palmer to be good. I should have known. Whatever you think it is, flip it the other way, flip it 3 times around, cover it in chocolate and sprinkles, and maybe that's the answer. No, it's, yeah, I mean, we could talk about the garden and where Waverly and Doc are. I bet the
And we
garden
will.
looks just like Purgatory. It's probably like an alternate dimension of Purgatory. Yeah, like a mirror. Yeah, that would be cool. Like we could do it.
Oh, is it like a mirror world like in Star Trek where there's evil versions of everybody in
I
there?
have never seen Star Trek.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Please love me anyway.
Still do, but there was an episode where there was a mirror world
Oh.
and all of the characters existed there, but like they were all evil instead of being good
Oh
people.
God.
Or an opposite. Yeah, so like in that world, Bobo would probably be the hero and be the...
Oh. And would Willa be there? And then Willa's like a good guy, and then like Winona and Waverly are the bad ones? Oh my God.
You know, you flip one...
Winona's 2 sides of the same coin, right? I mean, she's not
Yeah,
exactly.
but couldn't you imagine where they go there and you know, they're like standing back on the streets in Purgatory watching them go by and they hear all these people going, isn't Winona just the best and the nicest? It's that Waverly I can't stand.
That would be so perfect. Yeah, like Winona's like like a kindergarten teacher.
Yeah. She runs the daycare.
Waverly walks in like all drunk.
Stumbles across the bar.
Yeah. And Winona says, you know, everybody hates you, Waverly. Waverly's like, I know. Oh my God. Okay. This would be good. This is actually fun. We should do this for real. Oh wait, we're recording now. Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, anything goes, right? I mean, like, imagine it and it could be, right? That would be cool if it was an alternate world. I have a
Possibility.
hard time imagining that it's a garden, but then again, I mean, literally we could find Waverly, like, like Mother Nature in a tree with, like, birds and, all around. I mean.
Hey, I'm ruling nothing out. We've
Yeah.
learned that, like you said. So that's where I sometimes stumble when we start doing these. Unless I have a real good idea like that one, I'm usually the one going, I guess so, could be.
So when Winona woke up, well, not woke up, but kind of woke up, right? And everything was gone.
Doc's guns were still there, but the sword wasn't.
Right. I had a theory, because like I do, and then she walks into town, nobody's there, says Valdez, all right, nobody's around, I still have a theory, and then Nedley's there, and that blew every theory I had out of the water, because I was like, oh, maybe Winona's the one that got stuck in some other, like, universe, like wherever so my theory was, which is now not true, is that wherever the angel went, whoever's protecting the garden, that's where the world went. So like that's the real world, and Winona's stuck on the outside of that real world, which was going to parallel kind of how she felt in life, right? Being stuck on the outside of fitting in and of being accepted. But then Nedley's there, so I don't know. Nedley's there, and I don't know. So now I have no idea. So I like the mirror idea. Yeah, yeah.
How do you think Doc got up the stairs?
Okay.
Because he's supposed to be mortal, right?
Yes. Well,
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the theories was that when he had the fight in the greenhouse with, when he was, Waverly was there and Charlie/Julian, and he got pushed into the statue and passed out. When Waverly was over him, a single tear dropped on him. So did that angel tear somehow turn him to that?
in the arms of the angel. No, yeah. It's New Orleans. That's our theory, is that, yes, that, so whatever Waverly has seemed to, when she touched Mercedes and she said, "You're beautiful," and then all of a sudden Mercedes was beautiful again and her face was healed. I think when she touched Doc, and then this is and this is where I think word choice is very important. She said, "We loved the man you used to be," right? Yeah, and so in that moment, he ceased to be, I think he's now mortal. He's a man. He's, and he's the goodness in him, and that's who he is. So that's why I think he could ascend the stairs. But he had to leave his guns
Yes, the guns
behind.
were, yeah.
Do you,
Huh?
No, she's the keeper or whatever now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's the other.
Chosen one. She has to guard the gate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well-
so like, thou shalt not pass. Yeah, she can't go through. She's the keeper of the garden now. So
Do you think we'll see Christy again? Chrissy.
yes.
Chrissy
Well,
Nedley.
I'm
Chrissy
gonna say
Nedley.
yes, but who knows?
I mean, you folks know Emily. She knows we would love some of these things. So I got to feel that at some point we're going to have something happen with that. I don't know. I don't know. And now, one other, you have a question? No, you folks have got better stuff than me usually.
I mean, it was just another fan question, but I didn't understand the whole Julian resurrecting Nicole situation where he said there has to be a sacrifice, but Waverly resurrected Julian and there was no sacrifice. Do you know, do you have any theories on why Julian had to die to resurrect Nicole?
Well, I'm not so much sure he died because of that, other than him resurrecting her weakened him so he couldn't defend himself.
Wow.
He gave that up to be able to save her. And as far as Waverly, maybe by her going into the garden, that was her sacrifice in payment for bringing him back. Or maybe Julian, because he was an angel, and now that would be Waverly too, just can easily be resurrected. We don't know the rules of the universe. So any of these things could be in play.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
One thing, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no.
and lots of us have been theorizing it. They all, Winona comes back. There's no one around except for Nedley. So everyone goes to the place that we're in, like this alternate world, universe, timeline. But didn't we, as we led up to this final episode, virtually or almost all that we could see of Purgatory, everyone had gone out of town. They had evacuated. So maybe the fact that we just see Winona walking on a deserted Purgatory street, well, it probably was deserted before the showdown with Bolshoi. So maybe that's not really what's happened. Because who didn't we see? Well, we had Nicole and Jeremy.
Yeah, they're all passed out.
They were
but not
passed
Nicole,
out.
But Valdez took them, maybe.
Yeah, so could it have been, Valdez that took them? So it's not supernaturally timelines, it's just
Yeah.
typical Emily making us think we see one thing when it's actually going to be, it could be.
Yeah, I don't. You want to say something's not, obviously it doesn't feel right if it's just Nedley and Winona left in the town. But you're right. I mean, if there was an evacuation of the town and everybody evacuates, and then Valdez comes in for whatever reason and maybe takes the gang, maybe to protect them, or whatnot. It wouldn't surprise me that Nedley's like, hell no, I'm going down with the ship, like this is my town, I'm not leaving it, that would make sense to me. I don't know why Winona passed out. Like that's the thing that I'm always a little bit curious. Like, why did she fall asleep a little bit when Doc went up the stairs? It's almost like, huh? Yeah, when he goes up the stairs, it's almost like she says goodbye, and then like he goes up the stairs, and then no, she doesn't say goodbye till after, and then you kind of see her a little bit wake up, and so I'm like, it's kind of a weird time for a nap, but so.
That is, but maybe that acoustic theme song just knocked her out like the rest of us.
Oh, that broke me. Let's go into that for a second. You know what we're all talking about, right? When Dolls, has everybody seen season 3, right? Okay, good. So when Dolls, spoiler alert for everybody on the podcast. So Dolls' is death and the funeral scene, and we knew it was going to be a hard episode to go through. He, just in general, a lot of people had compared it to The Body by Buffy, which I had not seen, but he had, so he was preparing me. Like a good friend. But I did not see that coming. I did not see the theme song being changed to an acoustic slowed down version. But it made so much sense, because I don't know how you start an episode like that with like dun 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 dun, yeah.
Oh, man. And that's why I say if it wasn't hard enough in the grief episode to then have it again at the very end when Waverly and Doc, check out. Okay, check please.
Yeah.
All right. What an emotional mess at that
No,
point.
it's like, oh, we broke them once, let's do it again.
That is classic Emily. You know
Yeah.
that. We all know that.
Yeah.
We're just about out of time, folks. Do you have any other questions or quick topics to cover?
We started a little late.
Wait,
Hi.
we ran 15
Okay.
minutes late, too.
Okay.
Sorry. I have a argumentative one that we've been discussing from season 1. You know how they're in the police car, way hot in the cop car? She picks her up on the side of the road, and they have a little argument. The line that Waverly says when she goes, "We're not dating," and she's so mad about it and aggressive, the argument is that she's just recently ended it with Champ, and that she's saying, "I'm not dating him anymore," like, we're not dating, as in, I'm available. Or, like, why would she be saying to Nicole, like, we're not dating in the 10 seconds they've just met? Like, it seems really all of a sudden, and it's a weird thing for her to say, and the response is a little bit like, okay. And I guess it wasn't really cemented for us, so the argument's 50-50 whether she's saying, we're not dating Champ, or we're not dating as in her and Nicole.
Was okay? Gonna have to jog my memory here, guys. Was it was Nicole kind of telling her, like, trying to like?
She just said, maybe you've been dating too many shitheads, and she goes, we're not dating, like, immediately after, which is she saying, like, Nicole is not a shithead. I mean, it sort of seems like to me she was talking about Champ, because it's everyone knows she's dating Champ. It just seemed really obvious, like she was trying to say no. And I don't know if this is just a directing versus scripting issue. Like, maybe they changed it, and maybe it was just the way she said it. Maybe it was not meant to be so aggressive. Like, we're not dating.
What did Nicole say after
Yeah, I know.
I think I always
It's just really
took it-
argumentative. Like, I know it was really silly,
Yeah.
and it's not a big thing.
I
It
think
was
when
just,
you like kind of want to be dating somebody, but then they're kind of, Nicole's kind of like, I don't want to say fussing at her, but she's sort of like being a little bit judgy about like some of the people that Waverly's chosen, and Waverly's already at a crossroads trying to figure out who she is and what she wants in life. And I think that I always took it to that like Waverly was kind of like like when somebody tells you something, like one of your older siblings, and you're like, you're not mom, like kind of thing. I always thought she was kind of, well, we're not dating, so like you can't tell, you can't judge me like that. But then also the reason I think she like immediately thought to say that is because she does have an interest in Nicole, and she is struggling with like whether or not she wants to be dating her, and so it's sort of like. Not really your place, but also, do you want to go out? I think there was a little bit of like her not loving the fact that like, Nicole kind of can see right through a lot of who she was and what she was doing. And that's how I always took it. I didn't think she was talking about Champ, because she was dating Champ for a long time. But I mean, I definitely think,
Well,
I thought, yeah.
Well, the thing, and that's a great example in the series, though, of how I love the duality of what it could mean.
Mm-hmm.
We each have our own view of what it means.
Yeah.
That, so you pick this side of it, you're right. You pick that side of it, you're right, until something further down the line comes back and references it. I love that that's the case with all the stuff that's going. It's not really related to that, but a fun thing just to show how they do it so well. When we had that season 1 finale, that last shot of Waverly turning around and firing. I mean, we spent all off season thinking, who did she shoot? Oh my God, she shot Doc, she shot. And then when the season 2 premiere came along, we are blessed to get the early screeners from the Sci-Fi Channel. So we get to see them early. And sometimes when you get those early screeners, they're missing special effects or some other things because it's a rough cut, not the final cut. So I remember when we got that to look at, so excited to watch it, and it started with them just running in the woods. I was like, oh my God, they forgot a scene. They left it out of the episode.
I know, I think I
What was
DM'd you, and
going
I was
on?
like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Did we miss something?
This must be an early cut because we didn't, what was going on? So sometimes, again, that's the storytelling. And in my head, I was so certain we were going to pick up with one of them ducking or getting hit with the bullet. And to have that happen, see, I had already played where it was going to go. And no, we're going to, we're Emmeline team. We're going to find a way to route you to something totally different. And I must admit, that's also when I started getting a lot more, or I should say a lot less certain of what I was going to be seeing. Like, don't bother Kev, you're going to get it wrong.
Yeah, I think I was really surprised when they opened season 2 like that, because I like you, I thought we were going to start right from, Winona being like, oh my God, what did you just do? Or, or something. But no, and then it's just a one line, like she was shooting a demon basically behind his head, but around. But yeah, and I think Michael Eklund has said, I think on a panel before, about like, well, what did you think it meant? Then that's what it meant, and I think, what did you get out of it? That's what that's what you were supposed to get out of it. And I think as far as with Way Hot, people like to dissect, each line and each like little, look and each nuance. And I think when you get out of it what you're supposed to. So yeah, I mean, if that spoke to you and people who think, no, she was talking about Champ, then they're probably right. I mean, there's only one person who knows, right? And that's Emily. So yeah, I always thought she was talking about just in general, like a little bit, it's almost like someone calling you out about like, you want to date me before you're ready to say you want to date me, So she got a little defensive, like, I don't want to date you, like kind of thing, but she really did, as evident by the later scene. So, does anybody have any last questions? Yeah.
You guys have done a lot of everything with cast. Are you planning on doing anything with the writers? Maybe interviewing some of the writers? Or anybody else that does crew?
Yeah, we had talked bit about getting some of the stunt people on. And then we would love to get some of the writers on. The writers are funny because like they're writers, and so they're kind of like, what? You want to talk to us? We don't do that. Did anybody see the writers panel at ACON? Yeah. So like they're so surprised that people want to talk to them. Like it's so funny because you're like, we love you, and they're like, we're writers. We hide behind like in the pages. I would love to get the writers on. I would love to get as many behind the scenes people as we can. But they're busy. Some of the writers are definitely writing other shows and other scripts, and the crew goes from
Show to show.
show to show. So we'd love to get some more behind the scenes stuff. That would be great. Yeah.
Yep. We are in process on a couple of those. So it's just a case of timing.
Noelle, get the whiteboard. You're coming on the podcast. Any last question?
No? All right. I think that will wrap us up for the live podcast. We do appreciate you all coming out here. Be sure to thank all the volunteers who are making this con happen, along with the organizers, folks. It's all Earpers helping Earpers. So we appreciate it very much. Thank you, gang.
Bye.